let's go into the article. Is it large enough? Can you see it? Let me enlarge it a little more. One more. On Daniel 7, verses 9 and 10, 13, 14, and Daniel 7's implication on the Trinity and the nature of God. Let's revisit this because I'm going to quote excerpts from this, and then we're going to turn to the fathers, Irenaeus and Hippolytus, or Hippolytus, some pronounce it Hippolytus, their interpretation of the fourth man in the fire, the fourth figure who appeared as a man but wasn't human, whom Nebuchadnezzar said looked like the Son of God, what they said about that figure, and also what they say about Daniel 7, the Son of Man, and also what Hippolytus said about that divine figure Daniel saw in Daniel 10. We ready to learn? Holy Spirit, help us to focus. Let's read Daniel 7 and its Trinitarian implications. Okay? Daniel 7, verses 9 to 10, verses 13 to 14, 27. I'm going to be using NIV because it renders the Aramaic verb pilach, where we today use the word palacha, plichle, right, as worship, and rightly so. But let's pay attention to the language as the Spirit works through me and illuminates us. All right. As I looked, thrones, plural, okay, plural, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. Now notice, his seat, singular. The Ancient of Days sits on one of the thrones, but there's more than one. Okay? There's more than one. Okay? Now let's continue. His clothing was white as snow. Now notice, the Ancient of Days appears in visible form. He appears in a visible shape, wearing a visible robe, having visible hair and a visible head. Why do I say appearing? Because we believe that God by nature is bodiless, shapeless, formless, because God exists when there was no space, place, no matter. So if there's no matter, no space, no place, then God is not a body, right? Because if he's a body, bodies are composed of matter, some kind, and require space and place. But God Almighty is then able to appear in any shape and form, and in multiple shapes and forms simultaneously, in order for us to see him who is invisible by nature. This is what we believe is the correct inference of rightly dividing the scriptures, right? Now, there were Christian writers and some fathers that thought God did have a body, like Tertullian, the Christian writer. And I was told, because he was influenced by Stoicism, he thought if God has a substance and he has a body, because substances have bodies, even though God's body wasn't physical, meaning of the matter of the earth. Now, we reject that because, again, many people may not even know this. According to even Orthodox Catholic teaching, no one church writer, no one church father, no one church theologian is infallible in all that he says. Even in Catholic teaching, the Pope doesn't always speak infallibly. Neither did the holy apostles or prophets. They only spoke infallibly, we believe, when the Spirit moved them to then proclaim the words of God, either orally or when they inscripturated them, right? This is what we believe. We have good reasons to believe it because Jesus Christ historically walked this earth, did miracles, was killed and buried. The tomb was discovered empty, and his followers claimed to see him alive physically and ascend. And the tomb is empty and he's risen. So we take his words over anyone else's, right? Right, Nina? Yep. So even if you find a writer, a saint, theologian, even a father, saying something, that doesn't mean we accept it. As far as the Catholic Church is concerned, if there's a consensus of early writers, fathers, or unanimity If it's a unanimous teaching, then we go with that, unless there are good reasons that the minority view is actually correct and the majority or the consensus is not correct. And the reason why it formed a consensus is because they were influenced by someone. Case in point, Augustine was a giant in the church. Augustine's influence cannot be underestimated. I would dare say that apart from the holy, blessed Apostle Paul, who wrote 14 of the 27 books of the New Testament by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and at times he used amanuenses, secretaries, I would dare say that Augustine becomes the second most influential theologian for the Western Church, and then comes the angelic doctor Thomas Aquinas. Right? That's the kind of impact Augustine has had on the Western Church. Then Aquinas. You with me there? This cat wants to go on, man. This cat's killing me. May the Lord make my voice pleasing to your ears. In the West, in Protestant and Catholic traditions, Augustine is a giant. And in the Catholic tradition, right, Aquinas is the angelic doctor. It's almost as if he and Augustine are now the 14th and 15th apostles. You with me there? Because of their influence and legacy. In fact, Augustine was so influential, you will read Martin Luther and John Calvin swearing by him and claiming that they were appealing to him and he was their authority. And in point of fact, Thomas Aquinas had such an influence and impact on the reformers that now there is a large movement of reformed Calvinists. And they're not a small group. It is spreading, who are calling themselves Thomists. And they are bringing back Thomas Aquinas's views and his writings and teaching them in Reformed colleges and seminaries, to the dislike and anger and chagrin of James White and others like him. Do you guys know that? So you see what I mean by an individual can have such an impact that he then influences all those who come after him. So it's not really a consensus view. What it is the view of a theological giant that moved the consensus to want to accept that view and not oppose it. You guys know that? Oh, yeah. You guys haven't seen the internet wars among Calvinists, among Reformed Christians? James White has been in the thick of it because there are now Reformed Christians, Calvinists, who are saying that part of the Reformation heritage, part of the Reformation tradition includes Thomas Aquinas. And they call themselves Thomists. And James White is livid for over a year. He was doing dividing lines, rebuking the Calvinists and these Reformed Christians for bringing in Thomas Aquinas. You guys don't know that? It was major news for over a year on DL, James White, and on Twitter. Yeah, you guys, man, where you guys been, man? Why do you think James White, for over a year, kept doing dividing lines, calling Reformed Christians to repent of their fascination of Thomas Aquinas? Did you know that? Google it right now. Can you go Google? James White, Reformed Thomists. Can you guys fact check me real quick? That's his fear. You nailed it. Mario, that's the fear of James White. That's the fear of James White. He's like, man, if you keep going this route, don't be shocked that you're going to have mass conversions to the Catholic Church. And it's happened already. In fact, if memory doesn't fail me, Christian Wagner was a Reformed Christian who, because of Thomas Aquinas, ended up becoming militant Thomist. Do you guys fact check me? Because I can't do everything at once. Go to Google and put in James White, Reformed Thomist, and see what you find. Mraga. Right? You found it? There you go. Pojoga, found it. Read the Gospels, found it. There it is on Mraga. That's why I tell you Mraga is better. Here you go. Here's the link. What's my point? Aquinas is such a theological giant that he had such an influence that he caused consensus after him to look to him as an authority and would not dare question him. So you understand why even when you say consensus view, you have to nuance that? You understand what I mean? Nuance that? Because you may find a consensus that wasn't the result of independent Christian minds receiving that from the apostles or coming to the same conclusion, but because of the influence of one theological giant that caused the others to accept that view. So let's look at it right here. Let me show you. Right there. So you see how it works? No Orthodox, no Catholic goes by one father or theologian. They will go with the unanimous teaching or the consensus unless the consensus itself was influenced by one major figure and the minority view has stronger evidence. This is why this is not for the faint of heart. This is why not everyone is qualified to delve into the matters unless they have spent years prayerfully reading the primary sources and understanding them. Here you go, you see? Reformed Thomist, there it is, dividing line. When was this? March 1, 2022, and it began. There it is. You see it? Over a year. And they were going back and forth on Twitter. X, formerly called Twitter. And the Reformed Christians were hammering James White and saying that you are not faithful to the Reformation. You have betrayed your Reformation roots. And he was livid. You dare question me, the great Jamila? Right? So, with that said, now let's go back to my article. May the Spirit correct all my errors and mistakes. Now let's go to Daniel 7. Why did this come up? Because there were certain Christians, like Tertullian, he's not a father, who thought that God the Father, because he had a substance, had a body by his very nature. Because in his mind, substances, if you have a substance, you must have a body. So if God has a substance, he has a body. Well, that's wrong. That was Stoicism. That's not biblical teaching. You understand? If we read the Bible carefully, and we understand the Bible carefully, then the conclusion is that if God created space, place, and matter, and he did, that means God exists when there was no space, no place, no matter. Well, that means he's a type of being, a type of existence that doesn't need space or place or matter to dwell in. Well, if he doesn't need matter, he doesn't need space, he doesn't need place, then he can't be a body. Because if he's a body, bodies require space and place, and they're material. See how that works? So then when we read in the Bible, God in the Old Testament Hebrew Bible is appearing in a body or appearing in a visible shape. That's because the Almighty Creator, who's the creator of all shapes and forms, can appear and assume any shape and form without having to take the nature of that thing to himself. Right? So that means in Daniel 7, this Ancient of Days is God the Father, but he appeared in a body, with a body. He appeared wearing white clothing, robe. He appeared with a head full of hair that was white like wool. Well, that's not his body. He doesn't have a body by nature, but he can appear with a body, and he can appear seated on a throne. You understand? Is it all making sense, guys? So that's what he appears. So he sees thrones, but the Ancient of Days sits on only one throne. See it? I want to make sure you're getting it. For you to learn these facts, understand them, may this Lord destroy all error in me. Then you go teach them. Go live them out. Go teach your spouse. Go teach your children. Go teach your grandchildren. Introduce these to your neighbors. Ask your priest that you can start teaching at church. The material's there. Right? And I hope the screen is large enough. I'll make it large a little more, then we continue. All right. Now let's go. Thrones, more than one. Ancient of Days sits on one throne. He appears with a head of hair that is white like wool and wearing a robe. And he appears sitting on one throne. Then who sits on the other throne? Brother Isaiah, shouldn't you be sleeping? I guess maybe you don't have work tomorrow. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated. See, I knew. And the books were open. Now, who sits on the other throne? Because he saw thrones. Here you go. Figure number 2. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man. Now, let's parse the language. One like a son of man. He didn't say, I saw one who is the Son of Man. Why? Like a Son of Man means he looked human. He had a human appearance. The reason why Daniel says one like a Son of Man is to affirm the fact that though he appears human, he's not merely human. He is more than human. So appears human. He appears as a man. But he's not merely man. He is God appearing as a man. Okay? Let's prove it. One like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days. Count. Ancient of Days, wearing a white robe, white clothing, with white hair on his head, white like wool. Right? I'm sorry. Yeah, white hair on his head, seated on a throne. Another figure comes to the Ancient of Days. So they're not the same. Now I see why. Thrones, plural. Not throne, singular. Thrones, plural. Not thrones, singular. Because Daniel shocks the Jews of today in seeing a vision of two distinct divine figures, persons, not gods, because Daniel's a monotheist, there's only one God. Before Christ became born of the Virgin, before the New Testament. One like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power, meaning he was given kingdom. That's why there's another throne, because he's going to come and take that other throne and sit enthroned with the Ancient of Days. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. Ipelechun, from Pilach, Aramaic, Palacha, Plichle. Notice, he's not just for the Jews, Muslims. He's not just for the Jews, Muslims. All nations, all peoples, in all languages. That means all you Arabs in Arabic, you were created to worship him in Arabic because he owns you. And he'll rule over all of you. Yeah, watch how bad it gets for them, his flock. How long does he rule over all nations? His dominion is everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Right? Never be destroyed. Now, 27 is interesting, because notice what's said about the Son of Man. The Son of Man, right? His kingdom is eternal, right? And every nation in all languages worship him. Look what it says about the Most High. Verse 27. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdom of heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. Here you have Daniel prophesying, not only do the Father and the Son, Ancient of Days and Son of Man, rule, but we who believe in them, trust in them, and endure even unto death, we will be rewarded to rule with them and inherit their kingdom forever and ever. That's exactly what Revelation teaches, doesn't it? Right? Isn't that the teaching of Revelation? We are a kingdom of priests who will serve Father and Son and the power of the Holy Spirit forever and rule over the earth under their headship. Daniel saw that before Revelation. So it'll be handed over to the people of the Most High. Now notice, his kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, just like the Son of Man. His dominion is a lasting dominion, and all rulers will worship and obey him, just like they will worship the Son of Man. But guys, guess what's amazing? Did you know that the Aramaic word, and I've done lots of sessions on these same passages. It's not new. Creature repetition. We need to hear something repetitively to become second nature. Did you know that the Aramaic word Most High is plural? Elyonin. Literally, it is the Most Highs, the highest ones. It's not singular. Do you know that? Now, why do you think it's plural? That the holy people of the highest ones. Why plural? Because Daniel saw two. One like the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days. Two, and they both rule together forever, and they'll both be worshipped forever by all nations. That's why it's plural. Come on, Orthodox Zena, you know how many sessions I've done on this? Elyon. It's Aramaic, not Hebrew. There is no El Oyum. I don't know what you're talking about. Elyon. It's plural of, because it would be Elyon, singular, right? And if you want more of this, not only watch my sessions on it, but you go down here, you see it? Son of Man rides the clouds. Part 1a, part 1b, 2a, 2b. I go through the plural Elyon, which is Elyonin. Let's see if it's here. I don't know what part it is. I got too many articles, I can't keep up. Elyonin. Let's see. Yep, plurality and unity. Here you go. Both in Daniel 7:18, 22, 25, 27, it's plural, Elyonin. Now I'm going to read the commentary. Remember, we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now, if I don't agree with everything she says in Daniel comment, why do I quote her? It's to bring even scholarly confirmation for what I'm saying. Meaning, I quote them to show this is not something I made up. Take your cursor you put here under your cursor, you'll say adjective, masculine, plural, adjective. ADJ-MP. Masculine, plural, adjective. It's right there. Verify it for yourself. But do you understand the implication of Daniel? The implication of Daniel is what? There are two eternal divine persons. Ancient of Days, Son of Man. They're not the same. That's why Son of Man can go to the Ancient of Days. And they both appear visibly because one of them becomes human, the Son of Man. Because New Testament tells us this one is the one who becomes Jesus. And he did become a man. He did take on a physical body and add an extra nature, human nature. But the Father never became man. So he can appear in visible form as a man without becoming man. See the difference? See the difference? Right? But you want me to show you the Holy Spirit in Daniel? So that there's three and three alone? That the pagans knew it was the Spirit of the Holy God that was given Daniel wisdom, knowledge, understanding. That even the pagans, right, realized was beyond their capacity and even beyond the ability of their own gods as a testimony that Daniel's God is the true God. Here. Daniel 5. Belshazzar and the pagans were engaging in drunken revelry, orgies. And all of a sudden, they saw a visible hand writing on the wall, Minni, Minni, Tekel Parson. And they were freaked out. But none of the magicians, sorcerers, Chaldeans could interpret it because their gods were powerless. So then they told them about Daniel. And look what they say about Daniel. Now, the New King James captures it perfectly because I'm going to go into the translation issue in a minute. Here's your Trinity, people. Daniel 5, 11, and 14. Right? Daniel 5, 11, and 14. There's a man in your kingdom as the Spirit. See, I said New King James, and I forgot NIV. Be careful of these translations that translate it plural. Okay. Daniel 5, 11. Ready? Okay, let me enlarge it. Daniel 5, 11. There's a man in your kingdom whom is the Spirit of the Holy God. See, even the pagans saw the power of Daniel's God, the power of the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's why they were placed there. They were placed in the palace so they would be a witness to Nebuchadnezzar and the others that the God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the true God and wants them to turn and be saved. In other words, God was placing them there because God even wanted the Babylonian court to be saved because God loves all human creatures, even the kings of Babylon. You understand? Why do you think they were there? Why do you think God was doing miracles through them and them alone and confounding the gods of Nebuchadnezzar, Nabonidus, and Belshazzar? As a witness to them. I am the true God. Your gods are nothing but demons under my feet. And I created you, and I'm the one exalting you, and I want to save you. I don't want to destroy you because I love you too. You understand? You understand the message? So here, there's a man in your kingdom whom is the Spirit of the Holy God. That's why he has wisdom and knowledge that rivals the gods. And we can't keep up with that knowledge. And in the days of your father, light, understanding, wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, meaning your royal predecessor, your father, the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, because none of them could match him. Again, then he goes himself, Belshazzar, and says, to Daniel, Daniel 5:14. Right here. I have heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and that light, understanding, and wisdom are found in you because of that Spirit. You're telling me the Bible is not Trinitarian? You can't even escape the Trinity in the Old Testament. What are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking about, man? Now, the quotations. This is why I got these commentaries. See how solid they are and how far adrift they become. So now I quote this commentary. So let me go back. Watch here. I'm quoting now this book. Right here. Pages 378, 380. Right here. Why do I quote those parts I agree with? Because I'm not dependent on them. I'm only quoting them as what they call, right, a valid appeal to authority, to scholarship, in order to show this is not a view I've invented. You understand why we're doing this? I'm appealing to those recognized as experts in the field to show I did not invent this. That's it. Because I'm not considered an authority and a scholar. This is how academia works. You ready? So let me quote what she says right here. Pages 373, 378. I may have to do a part 2. Here it is. 1D Witter, Daniel, a discourse analysis of the Hebrew Bible. I guess it's volume, what is it? 23, I believe it is. Whatever it is. Right? Zondervan, Exegetical Commentary on the Old Testament. Daniel L. Block, General Editor. Pages 378, 380. Emphasis mine. All right. She will give you the historical, cultural background of Daniel 7 to show you that in light of its historical context, no one reading Daniel would deny that Daniel is describing two distinct divine figures. Understand? If you read Daniel 7 in light of its historical backdrop, in light of ancient Near Eastern beliefs, no one reading Daniel 7 would fail to say Daniel just presented two distinct divine figures. Jennifer, welcome. Lord bless you and your family and preserve you. Are you with me there? Let's read. The imagery of clouds, that the Son of Man rides the clouds, in this scene is significant. Why? She's going to state something I have shared plenty of times when I've done sessions on Daniel 7 and Christ being the Son of Man of Daniel. Watch here. Okay. Watch here. But by far, the most frequent use of clouds, its most frequent, meaning the Hebrew word anan, cloud, its most frequent usage has to do with theophanies, meaning when you see the word anan, cloud, in the Hebrew Bible, most of the occurrences has to do with God riding the cloud, God appearing on a cloud or in a cloud. You understand? Transition? Bibles don't transition, Max. Wait, I'll answer it a little later. All right? But by far, its most frequent association is with theophanies, that is, appearance of God. 58 of the 87 occurrences of anan, that word for cloud, appear in the context of God's presence. Alexander, chime in less, brother. Just let me focus. The Pentateuch especially speaks of visible manifestations of Yahweh's glory in the cloud atop Sinai and over the tent of meeting. And then she gives you the references. And his presence in the pillar of cloud guides the people through the wilderness. Again, references. Later text about the temple also refer to the cloud. Now, watch what this means. What's the significance that when the Old Testament speaks of a cloud appearing, that is reference to God's presence, God appearing, and the Son of Man riding the clouds. Here's the significance. You ready? But it is not just the presence of clouds in Daniel that is significant. We already know Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, is present in the throne room. Because who's the Ancient of Days? Yahweh. See above on 7, 9, and 10. What is particularly significant about the clouds in Daniel 7, watch the historical ancient Near Eastern context. Because among the pagans, they too had a belief of a divine council. And among the Canaanites, because we discovered tablets from Ugarit, right? Ugarit, which is where the Canaanites, some Canaanites live. And these tablets gave us a better understanding about what they believed and their practices and customs, right? What is particularly significant about the clouds in Daniel 7 is that someone is coming with them. Those of us outside of Daniel's context may well picture someone floating into the throne room on a billowy heap of clouds, right? Watch here. Okay. But this is probably not what Daniel would have seen. When you tell the ancient Near Eastern people God is appearing with a cloud, it was a chariot cloud where he's coming as a warrior with his arrows or sword, not, the floating lovey-dovey hippie Jesus. And you guys who are from Mesopotamia, you Assyrian, Chaldean, right, Suryoyo, you should know this. We have ancient depictions, what they call relics, of the Assyrian god Ashur, where he's in a chariot with an arrow, right? And you have a lot of Syrians who are now turning their back on Jesus Christ and wanting to go worship the god Ashur, Allah Ashur. That's the imagery. The imagery isn't of a lovey-dovey hippie Jesus floating on the clouds, floating. Fly, 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 fly. The imagery is of a warrior god coming on the chariots with his sword and arrows to slay and to save his people. And I'll show you that image in a minute. So here, to say the Son of Man is coming on the clouds, it's not a hippie, lovey-dovey Jesus like you have these Mormon depictions. I'll show you what it's going to look like. Right? But this is probably not what Daniel would have seen. In Daniel's ancient Near Eastern context, he would have seen someone riding the clouds like a chariot. The Old Testament speaks of Yahweh riding his cloud chariot through the heavens, and give the references, where the rider imagery is present without specifying the clouds in Psalm 65:4. And the prophets speak of Yahweh riding a cloud in judgment. Now watch the pagans, the Canaanites, from which the Israelites, right, clashed, with whom I should say. In the wider Canaanite world, the storm god Baal was the rider of the clouds. That was one of his names. Right? So, according to the Canaanites, the one who rode the clouds was Baal, the rider of the clouds. And he came with a thunderbolt. He would strike you down with thunder. Because they believe Baal controlled the weather, who controlled thus agricultural fertility. So you'd have to cry out to Baal to bless you with rains so you can have a good crop. And he was armed with a bolt of lightning. He bestowed rain on faithful worshippers. In Ugarit, a 15th century BCE city-state on the Syrian coast north of Israel, Baal was the divine hero who had defeated Yam in the sea, God's attempt to become God over the pantheon. What is being said here? Now let me not lose the point. Wendy Witter is saying that the Babylonians who would have heard this proclamation and read it would have immediately associated the one like the Son of Man as Baal, the rider of the clouds, and they would have associated the Ancient of Days with El, the high God, the father of Baal. You understand what they're trying to say? What is being said here is that Daniel is actually showing the pagans it isn't Baal that rides the clouds. And El is not the father of days, because the Canaanites, their high god was named El, one of the names of the true God. He was known to be the father of the gods. He had 70 sons, and also father of years. That was one of his names, father of years. And there are stories of him having a huge male member, because these gods and goddesses were perverts and would have orgies. So El and Baal are like Zeus. They go around sleeping with goddesses and women. So in the context of Daniel, when you talk about the Ancient of Days, for the Canaanites, or even those who had similar beliefs to them, that would have been the high god El. Because notice here, it says, Baal's victory won him kingship among the gods, and he served as vice-regent under his father, the high god El, an aged, wise figure who presided over the world and was attended by a divine council. But what Daniel was saying is, no, your God El, he's not the true God. The true El is Yahweh. And your other God, his son, Baal, he's not the rider of the clouds. The true rider of the clouds is one like the Son of Man. Not only is Daniel affirming that the God of Israel is multi-personal, he's also attacking the gods and goddesses of the pagans, saying, your gods aren't real. It's the God of Israel who is. It's a polemic against their gods. Do you get it or no? So what he's saying is, Baal is not the rider of the clouds. The Son of Man is. El, his aged father, because in Canaanite mythology, El was called the father of gods and the father of years. What is the true God called? Ancient of Days. He is not the true God. Baal is not the rider of the clouds. The true God is Yahweh, and the true rider of the clouds is the Son of Man. You understand now? It's not just an affirmation that the God of Israel is multi-personal. It's a polemic. It's an attack against the pagans and their gods. Hey, Babylonians, Marduk is not God. Nebo is not God. Yahweh is. And hey, Baal, he don't ride anything. He's under the feet of the one like the Son of Man, who is Yahweh, the Son of Yahweh, the Father. You understand? So, as Wesley Huff noted, Genesis 1 is not only an accurate depiction of creation, but a polemic. Because if you don't know, let me educate you. The pagans thought their gods were brought into being. They didn't create the heavens and the earth. They were part of creation and came into being. But Genesis says, unlike your gods and goddesses that are part of creation, part of the matter that came from which they came into being, the God of Israel created the heavens and the earth, and he exists when there was no heavens and earth. It's a polemic. Do you know what group has revived the ancient pagan myths, yet masquerades as Christian? You know what group? Mormons. Let me explain why. Anyone who's familiar with pagan mythologies will tell you Zeus did not create the heavens and earth from nothing. Zeus himself came into being by his father Kronos. So the gods were part of the material creation. They were part of heavens and earth. In fact, some pagans thought that the universe always existed. So what did these gods and goddesses do? They didn't bring the heavens and earth into existence. They too came into being as part of the universe. What they did was they took already existing matter and fashioned it and formed it, rearranged it. You understand? You understand? That's what Mormons teach. Do you know that? Mormons teach God the Father was a man living on a planet. So he did not create the heavens and the earth from nothing. And he became God and has a physical body of flesh. And so he and his sons fashioned already existing matter. They did not create the heavens and the earth from nothing. Mormonism doesn't believe that. This is why in Mormonism, they don't know who the original God is. And I asked them, I go, okay, God the Father was a man, lived on a planet, and so he fashioned existing matter and shaped it to what we have on earth today. He and his sons. Yep. But that means someone brought him into being, right? Yeah. So who is the original God that caused all this? You know what the answer is? They say, we don't know. Do you know that's their answer? We don't know. Ask them. Don't believe me. Say, all right, who is the original God that caused all this? Because God the Father didn't cause all this. He was a man who became God. And they have a heavenly mother, his wife. They don't know who the original God is because that wasn't revealed to them. Now you tell me, does that sound like biblical Christianity, or does that sound like the ancient pagan beliefs of El and Zeus and so on and so forth? Focus, Lotus, focus, everyone. So the pagans, reading Daniel, would see this as a polemic. He's saying, not your gods, it's my God. You know who the true Ancient of Days is? Yahweh. You know who the Father of years happens to be? Yahweh. You know who the rider of the cloud is? The Son of Man. Now, with that said, let's continue. Do not miss, right, what is happening in Daniel's vision. Look what the commentator is going to say. There's a fiery scene surrounding Yahweh seated on the throne, and there's a cloud with someone writing on it. So look what she's saying. You got a fiery throne, one seating on it, that's Yahweh. But then you have a cloud and someone writing on it. Well, who is that? Well, watch. In the Old Testament, Yahweh is the one who rides the clouds. Now you see the mystery? Wait, hold on. How do you have Yahweh appearing as the Ancient of Days sitting on a throne, and then you have someone else who's not him riding the cloud, if the Old Testament says it is Yahweh who rides the clouds? See what she's doing? She's unpacking how shocking Daniel 7 is. In this single vision, there are two Yahweh figures. The Ancient of Days on the throne, that's one Yahweh. And the cloud riding Yahweh receiving eternal right to rule. He's the second Yahweh figure. Daniel was seeing two powers in heaven. The one on the throne and vice regent, sharing Yahweh's essence and receiving everlasting dominion and power. Wow. See why I quoted her? Okay, watch here. Daniel's vision of the throne room provides a stunning portrayal of the divine council in Israelite theology. And watch the polemic against the pagans, as well as highlighting its most significant difference from other divine councils of the ancient Near East. In the Canaanite divine council, the rider of the clouds was El's vice regent and received eternal right to rule when he defeated Yam. But Baal was a different god than El. See, they were not the same god. But watch here. In the Israelite divine council, however, the vice regent position was not filled by another god, but by Yahweh himself in another form. Now, what does Mike Heiser mean by another form? Because she's quoting Heiser. This hypostasis of Yahweh was the same essence as Yahweh, but a distinct second person. Damn, Gina. Daniel is affirming that Yahweh God is multi-personal. Wow. Israel's divine council was headed by Yahweh, also called El Elohim, but its vice-regent shared the essence of Yahweh. Right? This had profound implications for understanding monotheism according to the Old Testament. Israel's divine council had a second person sharing Yahweh's essence. Exactly what was needed to understand Jesus' claim to be one with the Father in the New Testament. Then she goes on to say later on, right? Oops, I made a mistake. See? Oh, no, I didn't make a mistake. She goes on to say later on pages 398, 399. Look, why did Jesus like to quote the Son of Man? She gives several reasons. Why was Jesus' favorite self-description the Son of Man? If you read in the Gospels, he uses the Son of Man and referenced himself more than any other title, right? Why? So she gives some possible reasons. Quote, perhaps the second reason the Son of Man was Jesus' favorite title is because it is in Daniel's vision of chapter 7 that we find the clearest Old Testament picture of the divine council, and in it, Jesus' relationship to Yahweh. Probably the truth about him that his listeners had the hardest time grasping and accepting. In Daniel's vision of the Israelite divine council, Yahweh sat at the head of the council, but shared his essence with a second power that was a distinct figure to whom he gave everlasting dominion power. This portrayal of the divine council shows that the Old Testament monotheism had room for a second person. Watch here. Perhaps sending his listeners back to the vision of Daniel 7 was Jesus' repeated invitation for people to recognize him as that second person, to understand and believe that he was one with the Father. And then she says, go read 378, 380, which we read. We know that at least Jesus' educated audience understood what he was doing in claiming to be the Son of Man. How do we know they understood him? His educated audience who are literate in the Old Testament? We know this because they charge him with blasphemy when he used the title at his trial. Jesus told the Sanhedrin, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then she gives the references. A clear reference to Daniel 7:13. And they all heard him claim to share the essence of the Father. Why? Because he's not the Mighty One, but sits at the right hand of the Mighty One. And he had just said he is the Son of God. Right? The one who would ultimately exalt him, the Father exalt the Son of Man, Jesus, and give him everlasting kingdom. It was not a claim they could or would tolerate. They demanded his death. They didn't want to accept this man was that second power. So in her note, she says, any discussion of the nature of the Trinity ventures into a field of heretical landmines. I mean, you got to tread lightly and be careful, lest you espouse heresy. Watch her. Jesus will identify himself as the great I am, which means he too is Yahweh of the Old Testament. That is, Yahweh is not simply God the Father, but all of the Godhead in singular reference. Right? What we can say without falling into heresy is that there is an internal complexity within God that was not altogether apparent in the Old Testament. Jesus can be both distinguished from God and also identified as God. And then her other note, watch here. The language of essence is loaded with later patristic theological value. But for our purposes, it means that the New Testament religious leaders understood Jesus to be claiming a specialized and exclusive relationship with God that put him on a par with him, meaning made him equal to God, God the Father. Jesus was claiming an ontological, ontos, own means being, share in the identity of Israel's God. What this means is Jesus was saying he participates and he's included in the infinite being of Israel's God. See why I wrote this post and quoted her? So that the heretics won't say, Sam, that's your interpretation. You're making stuff up, Sam. You're no scholar. You don't know the Bible, Sam. You're not a scholar. Ha, 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 ha. All right. Now, with that said, let's go to Irenaeus. What does he say about Daniel? Now, watch what Irenaeus is going to do with this passage. Nebuchadnezzar throws Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, 3 men, but then he sees a 4th figure who appeared as a man in the fire with them. Again, New King James and King James, Dewey Rames captures the meaning perfectly. Daniel 3, 24, 28. Okay, you ready? Okay, watch here. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Right? Bar Alahin. So the Son of God appeared as a man, and he protected them from being torched by the fire. So they're walking in the fire as if it was a pool. But who is the Son of God that appeared as a man to save the people of God? Watch who he is. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, princes, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. Watch here. Who was the Son of God that appeared as a man that was with them? Now notice the lesson. He was with them in the fire to preserve them by being consumed by the fire. But notice he didn't take them out. What's the lesson? Jesus will be with you in your fiery trials to preserve you from being consumed by your trials. But he didn't take them out. He preserved them in the fire so the fire wouldn't consume them. Lesson. The Lord does not take you away from trials, but he preserves you by his power through the trial so the trial doesn't consume you. You understand the message? In other words, don't think that if you go through a trial, you won't go through it. The Lord can take you out of it, but the way he works, he will give you the power to go through it and come out unharmed with your faith intact if you trust in him. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel. Did you catch who the Son of God is? The angel of God. A 4th man who wasn't human by nature but appeared as a man, who had the appearance of the Son of God, was there, and that's the angel of God. You caught it? Did the angel of God stop them from being thrown into the fire? No, they're already thrown in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in the fire. So what this teaches you is, it's not that God will stop you from going through fiery trials. You'll be thrown in the midst of the fire, but God will preserve you that the fire won't consume you. You'll come out better men and women as a result. And who's there to preserve you? Because he's almighty over your trials? The Son of God, the messenger of the Father, Jesus Christ, who sent his angel, delivered his servants who trusted in him, and they frustrated the king's word, yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own. own God. Now, how do I know the fire represents your trials? Here you go, 1 Peter 1:7. We're going to read 8 as well. 1 Peter 1:7-8. That the genuineness of your faith, being more precious than gold, that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen you love. You haven't seen him physically, but you still love and adore him. Though now you do not see him, yet believing, you rejoice with joy inexpressible, full of glory. You are elated at Jesus and in love with Jesus. Can't wait to see him face to face. So notice again the connection with the fiery trials. But notice why it's fire. Because fire can destroy or purge and purify. Fire destroys wood, right? Straw. But it purifies gold and silver. So the fiery trials is meant to purge you of all your sin and unbelief and doubts and purify your faith, making your faith unshakable. How does it do that? Can I take a minute to explain how? How does trials make you stronger in faith? How? Can I explain how it does that? See the connection with the Son of God? Can I explain how it does that? All right. How does God make your faith stronger, unshakable, immovable? Through trials. Here's how. Every trial you go through and come out and survive only strengthens your trust in God. What do I mean? If I go through a trial and I'm afraid and despairing and cry to God, and all of a sudden the trial's over. When I come out on the other side, I look back and I say, wow, thank you, God, because I thought I wasn't going to make it. You showed me otherwise, because had it not been for you, I wouldn't be able to go through it. Every trial you go through and come out of only makes you stronger in trusting God, not doubting him, because you keep seeing how it could only have been his power that preserved you, because there was no way you could have done it in your strength. That's how it strengthens you. Believe me, I know what I went through. That's how it strengthens you. Yep, Nina's another one. Losing her son and what she went through. You understand why? Because every time you go through a trial and you see God's faithfulness, when another trial comes, you laugh. You know why you laugh? Hold on. All those other trials, God saved me, did not abandon me, and he's a faithful God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. I know my God will see me through this. So why am I despairing? That's how. You understand the logic? How it works? Right? Do you understand? He's building your trust and confidence. And he reminds you, did I abandon you the last time? No. Why do you think I'm going to abandon you now? I'm the same. My love for you is perfect. If I didn't abandon you then, why are you going to doubt me and think I'm going to abandon you now? Right? So what's the connection? Notice, your faith is being tested by fire, and that faith will bring you praise, honor, glory when the Lord Jesus is revealed and you see him. That's what happened to Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. They were thrown in the fire. Why? Because they told the king, look, king, we will not worship the image and serve your gods. Our God is able to save us from the fire, but even if he doesn't, we won't worship or serve your gods. We serve him only. They were thrown in the fire. Okay? Are you with me there? Thrown in the fire. Notice the Lord did not stop them from going into the fire. And immediately, when they were thrown in the fire, there comes the Son of God. With them in the fire. Do you know what that means? Jesus is with you, alongside of you, empowering you to go through the trials because he enters the fire with you and doesn't remain distant. He's not a God who's distant. He enters the fire with you. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Don't be afraid. I got this. Don't be afraid. I am one with you. You are one with me. When you go through suffering, I am with you in your suffering and I suffer with you. That's the kind of God I am. See the message here? You understand the message? Notice, he didn't have to enter the fire. He entered the fire. Why? Because he's showing you where you are, I am already there. I won't abandon you and be distant. I'm right there with you side by side. I enter the fire with you. I enter your trials with you because I'm there. Right? So here's the Son of God, who's the angel of God, meaning the messenger of God, not a creature, who will enter the fire. So what did you learn? You will enter the fire. But what did you learn? The Son of God is already there to meet you. He's there to meet you. And he's there to empower you. And he's there to preserve you. And he's there to strengthen you to go through it and come out stronger and unscathed. How do I know? Because watch here. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the kings, counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. It didn't burn them. Their hair of their head was not singed. It didn't burn their hair. Nor were their garments affected. Nor did they smell like fire, smoke. That's how I know. That's how I know. See it? And who? The Son of God. Who? The Son of Man. Because he appeared as a man. And later became man from the virgin. Who? The messenger of God. The angel. See that? This reminds me of a poem I'm going to read to you guys. I'm still not done. Give me some time. All right? I'm going to read this poem. A poem that's amazing. Let me read two poems. I want to read this one. One night, I dreamed a dream as I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across, see even the images you see? Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonging to me. Wow, this is powerful. One belonging to my Lord. This is going to make me choke up, guys. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest moments, times, there was only one set of footprints instead of two, right? There was only one. This really troubled me. Watch here. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you. You'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. Whew. When I needed you the most, you would leave me. Man, this kills me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. See why I told you kills me, this poem? That wasn't your footprints. Those were my footprints. That's when I carried you.